Good morning, everyone. Let's make this Saturday a knowledge sharing Saturday so that after an hour, we all feel that we have got a little bit of extra knowledge and the Saturday is well spent. So let's first start on what's happening on the economy side. And the reason is finally, at some point of time, markets and economy are parallel to each other. And it's very important that before we start economy, the topical topic is COVID. And let's take a stock of where the COVID is today. Obviously, we have come a long way from April and May, where the daily cases now are about at 10% of the second wave peak. We peaked at about almost 400,000. Today, we are talking about a daily run rate of about 38 to 40,000. But what is worrying again is in the last 10 days or so, cases have started again rising in few of the districts and states, and we need to keep a close watch there. Vaccination drive has been continuing at a very fast pace, and our sense is that's the only way where you can normalize the economic activity. As we speak, yesterday was a historic day. We completed 50 crore doses in the country, and 28% of total population now has been inoculated with one dose, and about 8% of the people have been vaccinated with both the doses. And if you look at the graph below, the 60 plus age population, about 65% of that eligible population, which is the most vulnerable in terms of deaths and hospitalization, have been vaccinated by at least one dose. There was a recent seroprevalence study done, and as per that study, now 68% of the Indians are having antibodies. The last study was done in December, which showed that about 25% of people have been infected or have some kind of asymptomatic and led to antibodies. And now post the second wave plus vaccination, as per the study, it's 68%. And we can see the states where that antibody data was done. And for example, Maharashtra, MP, Rajasthan, Bihar are all showing antibody prevalence of about 70% plus. On the right hand side, you can see state-wise vaccination status. Almost majority, 7 cities, large ones, have gone above 70% in terms of vaccination, and some cities like Gurgaon, some cities like Noida, Bhubaneswar have claimed that now 100% of their city population have been vaccinated with at least one dose. So vaccination, I think, has been going on quite smoothly with the infection and vaccination combination together. As per the study, 68% of now people are having antibodies. What does vaccinations do? And there are some global case studies which are emerging now, which shows that vaccinations reduce hospitalization needs. And the latest one is from UK, where 45,000 is the new number of daily cases. But if you look at the number of hospitalization or number of deaths, it's very, very minuscule. So clearly vaccinations have been, as a safeguard, and it has reduced severe illness and hospitalization, as was the case in the past. And the right-hand chart will show you the correlation between vaccination and fatality. In the countries where we have seen a very high level of vaccination, say Canada, Spain, France, we have seen very low fatality rates, incremental basis. What has that mean to the economy after the second wave? Clearly, April and May was, emotionally draining for all of us. But from June, second half, and July, as the state started reopening and removing restrictions on lockdown, what we have seen is that economy has rebounded quite sharply. That can be seen from registration vehicle data, that can be seen from power demand, freight demand. Even the July GST collections moved to 1.16 lakh crores. Employment rate fell to 4-month low. So there are various macro indicators which are showing that after the first wave, because it was a new experience, people were not sure what will be the path. In the second wave, companies, corporates, and many other, small enterprises were very well prepared to come out of that, and probably they didn't had that kind of a shock which probably happened in the first wave. Emotionally and loss of life was far more, but damage to economy this time was far lesser. Um, if you look at in terms of other macro indicators, GST collection I spoke about, it's at 1.16 lakh crores. This is the Nomura India Business Assumption Index, and that shows that in the month of May last year, this index from 98 dipped down to 60, and we all know the consequences. And this time post June, now it has rebounded as on 1st of August to 95, and it's just 5% below the pre-pandemic level. Uh, as we speak, we are in the third consecutive year of monsoons expected to be normal. Last 2 years, we saw both Kharif and Rabi have been extremely good. This time, monsoon started on a weaker note. There were many areas across the country which were deficient, but August has been quite good, and so was the second half of July. So it's keep our fingers crossed, but monsoon is expected to be normal. Uh, the government is doing the heavy lifting. We have seen that government has not uh, uh, stopped their spending on the economy, and especially the infrastructure sector. Even in June of 2021, the government spending year on year, it may not be the right comparison, but was up 100% versus June 19. Not 20, I'm taking as a base, but 2019. And this shows government's commitment that they want to spend on infrastructure, and probably till the time private sector becomes more confident, they would do the heavy lifting which they have been doing in the economy. So government spending continues to be providing tailwinds to many other sectors like infrastructure, cement, capital goods. Um, as we speak, India is likely to be the fastest growing economy. Even after the GDP resumption down post the second wave, we still are expected to grow at about 9.5. And if you ask my personal view, I think there's an upside bias to this number. My sense is people are just going with the flow. And in May, when the flow was extremely bad, people revised their numbers downwards. But as I look the way economy is responding post the second wave, my sense is that GDP number for the remainder or the whole of the 2021 could be higher than 9.5%. And that would make us the fastest growing economy in the world. Um, so how will the third wave pan out? I'm not an expert, but look at what have been the data till now. Pre-COVID, we are PMI, which is the manufacturing index, was at 54.5. GST was 105,000. Business assumption index was almost at 100, if you assume as a pre-index. First wave, it came down to 27. GST collections dipped to 32,000 crores, and business assumption index went as low as 44. The second wave, May 21, exports continued, many other sectors continued. The PMI didn't contract as much as the first wave. GST collection held on quite nicely at 102,000 and then improved to 116. And business assumption index dipped to 60, now back to 95. If the third wave was to hit, the question we need to ask is, apart from the the threat on the life, will it be a big threat on the economy? I think slowly and gradually people are expecting this to be a more of a flu and take it in the stride and let not the economy get hampered. So this time, if you saw in the second wave, there was no centralized lockdown. There were state-wise lockdowns, which still continues in few of the cities and states. But central government didn't come very heavily on the economy. So I think that's the big difference between first and second. And even if there's third wave, we'll see how it pans out. Coming to equity markets, friends, I think which all of you are interested, but I wanted to give you a brief that economy is bouncing back quite strongly after the second wave compared to what we saw in the first wave. So obviously last year has been a historic year in many senses. After 2 years of underperformance of 18 and 19, it all started after the crash in March 20, where the broader market started doing extremely well. And you can see the results now. And as somebody says, corrections are easy to visualize on the hindsight, because the period of that correction, and it's very easy to pass comments. But when you are in the correction, you don't know. And just rewind yourself a year back in May, June. What was the scenario? Everybody was scared. People didn't know what to do. People were worried about their livelihood. People were worried about their future. And God has been kind to us. In April, May, we went out to all our investors, reached out to everybody and said, this is the time to put money when nobody wants to. Because finally, this is a medical crisis. We'll see a solution to it. And economy, you will not get these chance again in the market. And the results are in front of you. Nifty gave you about 42% return. Almost double the return was of mid cap, and almost 2.5 times, 3 times was the return on small cap. So broader markets did extremely well. We saw the sectoral performances that metals and other sectors have been leading the way. So before we jump into what should we do in the market today, we all believe that finally stocks are slave of earnings. And if profit cycle improves, markets will do well eventually over a medium to long term. In the short term, there could be aberrations. In the short term, there could be periods of excesses and extremes on the other side as well. But finally, if the profit cycle plays out, that's what matters. And in the last 5-6 years, if you look at, the Nifty growth has been very, very abysmal. Overall corporates have struggled, but pandemic came as a blessing in disguise. And look at this data. So in 2007-8, we peaked at about 7% of corporate India as percentage of GDP in terms of profits. That number in 2020 dipped down to 1.6%. It's not that the profitable companies were doing badly, but there were large loss pools which was dragging the good work done by a lot of corporates. And those were in PSU, telecom, capital goods, and so on and so forth. And that led to the loss pool of almost being 2% of GDP. And as a result, your overall loss or profit was just 1.6%. Friends, as we speak, this number last year, which is pandemic year, has moved to 2.6. And if the street estimates of 35% earnings growth comes true in FY22, this number will move to 3.5, 4. So clearly the earnings cycle is in the early stages. We are still not peaked on the earnings overall momentum, maybe 1 or 2 quarters here and there. But I think corporate India has done an excellent job in saving costs and rebounding extremely strongly on profitability. Look at this chart. So this is the aggregate top line growth of BSE 200 companies. And friends, this is 15% higher than the pre-COVID levels. And clearly you are seeing that BSE 200 operating profits are almost 30% higher than the pre-COVID level. So clearly the top 200, 500 companies have done extremely well, and their profitability is higher than the pre-COVID level, though the economy may be far, far lower than the pre-COVID levels. Just a minute. This is again the Sensex and the Nifty. Who would have thought that in a year where economy contracts by 6% or 6.5%, and Nifty earnings growth moves up by 16%. And last quarter also, if you look at the base was low, no doubt about it, which is March quarter, but Nifty Universe delivered a 80% earnings growth. Expectation was 65% earnings growth. This is a very important chart, friends. If you look at this number of March 21, this is the reported PAT of NSE 500 companies. And on a quarter basis, we reported 210,000 crores of profit, which is the highest ever quarterly profit by India Inc. And we kind of kept on making records right from September. September, it was 176. December, it went to 209. March again picked up pace and we were at 210. Obviously, June 21 would be a problem because almost 45 to 50 days were lost for every company. But the point I'm trying to show you is that if you annualize this 210, we are talking about a PAT number of 840, 850. Whereas if you look at the estimates today, the NSE 50 companies is about 5 lakh 50, and on an overall basis, it's about 6.5 lakh crores. So clearly, if you look at that annualized PAT of 8 lakh 40, we are trading at about 24-25 times on a trailing basis. And if you look at the street expectation, 9 lakh 20, we are trading at 23 times. So clearly, I think markets are on a higher zone in terms of P, but not to the exuberant zone because profit cycle is still in the early stages. The second thing when we need to ask is where we are on the investment cycle sense. Because if investments picks up, obviously the economy gets a boost, growth gets a boost, and last 5-6 years have been extremely bad on the investment cycle. If you look at the private capex, almost private capex in the last 5 years has stagnated at 5.5 lakh crores. But what has happened during the last few years, especially in the pandemic year, that corporate India has made their balance sheet much, much leaner. They have cut down costs, they have cut down debt because they were scared that there is no visibility in the month of April, March last year. And they reduced their working capital intensity. And as a result, corporate India has done an excellent job. And if I look at the top 1,000 companies, they are in a much, much better shape than what they were pre-COVID. And my sense is that's a prerequisite for any sector and company to start their capex. If their balance sheets are laden with debt, they will never spend on capex. But if they have cash flows running in, their debts are low, you will see that. And look at the table one, this one. The free cash flow generation in FY20, I'm updating the numbers for FY21. The cash flows from operation after working capital changes were 8,80,000. And if we remove the interest spent, we're talking about almost 2 lakh crores of excess cash generation. And my sense is that FY22 and FY23, we should start seeing the new capex cycle starting to end. And don't forget, in the last 3-4 years, government was doing its work, private capex was subdued, and the household capex, which is real estate, was in a bad shape. Now, real estate has started to come back. Private is getting much more confident, and government is continuing to do its work. So on an aggregate basis, my sense is that the gross capital formation should be far better than what we have seen in the previous 4-5 years. As I said, India Inc. has cut down debt like never before. Also, another thing which we are witnessing is the upsurge of retail investors. Retail investors last quarter pumped in $8.5 billion. FIs were sellers, domestics were very marginal buyers. So you look at the kind of money which has been poured by retail, and retail has become very large investors, and they are now about 9.5% of your market in terms of shareholding. Indian mid caps have been outpacing US mid caps. Normally, we have seen a very sharp correlation between US broader indices and Indian mid caps. But over the last couple of months, though in US, the broader markets have started to consolidate, the mid cap index in India is continuing to march up. And also the IPO side, I think need to caution you guys that there's a lot of frenzy which is happening right now. Be careful. We have seen that in the past cycles as well. Only difference is that we have not seen very low quality companies accessing markets the way we saw in Harshad Mehta or Ketan Parikh times. But still a word of caution out there. In US already we have seen that IPO frenzy has peaked out, but in India it still continues to go higher and higher. On the valuation side, friends, clearly on every parameter, we are on the higher side on both PE and price to book. And I think clearly compared to the averages of last many years, we need to exert a bit of caution because valuations and a margin of safety is lower than what it was in the past. This is a lot of lines out there, but just focus on the white bold line and the yellow bold line. This is the alpha of the small cap index versus Nifty, and this is the alpha of mid cap index over Nifty, friends. And this has been plotted since 2013-14 when the index was launched. And the white and the yellow line clearly shows that the alpha generation calendar year to date versus Nifty has been the highest. So Nifty is up some 14-15% on the index. The small cap index is up almost, almost 40% or 45%. Mid cap index is up 36-37%. So now the clear question is, after such a sharp outperformance, is it time to be very, very cautious, take out money or not take out money? That's, I think, the question in everybody's mind. So Nifty is at 16,000 all-time high. What to do? And everybody says it's all-time high, we should, pull out money. But my call is, yes, you need to be a little careful, but look at the data points. Every time Nifty has hit all-time high, the 1-year returns on an average have been 13%. And 73% of the time, even after Nifty hitting all-time high for the next 1 year, markets have delivered positive returns. On a 3-year basis, that number of 73% moves to 87%. And on a 5-year basis, that number moves to 100%. So what we are trying to say is that, yes, you need to be disciplined on your asset allocation. It's not the time to be overweight equities. It's time to be neutral equity. But don't just be extremely careful saying that because Nifty 16,000 ho gaya, because Nifty has hit at all-time high, we need to take out money. The data doesn't suggest that. And on the right-hand side, you can see calendar year-wise dates and how the returns have been and how many times Nifty has hit all-time high, number of all-time highs during the year. Looking at the past, I'm fairly certain that sharp intermediate corrections are possible in a new profit cycle. And I'm giving you this example of 2003 to 2008. We saw a very sharp new profit cycle where corporate profit to GDP expanded from 1.5%, the same situation like last year, to say 7.5-8%. And for the 5-6 year period, we saw companies, very sharply expanding their earnings base. Despite of that, intermediately, we had very sharp correction. Look at this correction of 2015-16. I still remember May, June, the small cap index corrected by 43%, Nifty corrected by 30% in a matter of 5 to 6 weeks. And in the subsequent 34 weeks, small cap index was up some 70%. And again, the same highs. And from there also, markets corrected slightly and made 135% return in the next 45 weeks. So it's good that, for the health of the markets, that weak hands are sorted out. And there are intermediate corrections in the new profit cycle. But till the profit earnings growth momentum is strong, those corrections should be used as an opportunity to increase your equity and buy if you have been left behind. But don't rule out very sharp corrections. What has happened this time around is that there have not been any major corrections in the last 15-16 months. In a way, we have created records. The mid-cap index for the 15 months in a row has been non-stop, has not even given a 1 month of negative returns till July. The small cap index again has created a record, and for the 9 consecutive months have not given any negative return. My sense, friends, tactically, I think there's a reason for markets to give you an opportunity, because if you look at this next slide, you will see that corrections happen in every year in the market, despite of the returns there or not. And there were only 3 out of the 41 years, if you go into the past till 2020, that the corrections intra-year was less than 10%. On an average, the intra-year corrections have been 20% plus. And we saw that in 2020, nothing better than that, where markets in April, May corrected by 35-40%. But finally, the year-end data, if you look at, was 16% positive returns. So I think what we need to see is that corrections are part and parcel. If you believe your psyche doesn't allow to be or digesting the corrections, you're not fit for equity markets, trust me. And my sense is that This time around also, we have seen non-stop market movement. We should brace ourselves for intermediate correction if any was to happen. This is what the returns look like after the corrections I showed you. And clearly last year, if you look at the right hand side, 38% intra-year correction, and look at what has happened after the complete year closure. It's 16% positive. Similarly, in other years also, where we saw 20% correction, but markets finally finished off at 65%, 70% positive returns. So my sense is that intermediate corrections can't be ruled out. Despite of that, friends, the long-term returns have been extremely, extremely good. It's about 14% CAGR, which we have seen over the 90s to 2021 April. This is one very interesting chart, which gives me some indication on mid, small, and micro versus large cap. And friends, this is nothing but an inverse of PE, which is called earnings yield. And if you look at the earnings yield of only profitable companies, and I will tell you why. The mid, small, micro, which was offering very high earnings yield versus large cap, similar time last year, has almost contracted. There's still some earning gap, because earnings gap is needed, because if there's no earning gap, why would you take a risk of mid, small, micro when the same valuation large caps are available, right? So my sense is that if you look at this chart, it is giving you an indication that we may not be reaching the 2017, where there was hardly any incentive to take additional risk. All the three lines emerged to large caps earnings yield, but we are progressing towards that direction. And maybe small, kind of gap is there in terms versus large cap. If you look at the outperformance, it's very high since 2020 and calendar year, but the underperformance still of the broader market persists versus large cap over a 3-year period, which started with 2018 as a base. And that 100 rupees is 151 in Nifty, index to 100. Nifty mid cap, it's still 132, small cap is 115. Why I say profitable companies, look at this data. This data nobody will show you, and it's a very, very powerful data to watch out. In the small cap and the mid cap index, the loss-making companies are a huge pool. The loss pool to profit base is about 23% in small cap, and in mid caps, the loss pool is about 37%. So when people compare just the headline valuation number, they make a mistake because there's a large loss pool sitting in mid and small cap indexes, but there is no loss-making company on Nifty. So when you look on a headline basis, it looks that mid cap and small caps are trading at a premium. But if you do the earnings yield or PE of only profitable companies, you still see there's a bit of discount versus Nifty. This nobody will tell you, because nobody will go in greater detail and let you know about what the earnings yield of profitable companies are there in the index. The outlook remains strong for FY23. And our sense is that mid and small cap companies should outpace large caps in terms of growth. So yes, if there's an intermediate correction and you have not been invested in this broader market space, I would urge that systematically deploy your capital, and the capital has to be for the horizon of minimum 3 to 5 years. SIP has performed well, friends, and I just take few examples from our fund. That there's been a lot of debate between active versus passive. A lot of social media has been all across the place saying that why should you invest with active fund managers? They are underperforming. But if you look at some of the funds and few of the funds I'm managing, for example, my small cap fund is on a 1-year basis, and all the time periods, still in the last decade since I've been managing the fund, have given positive alpha, and the batting average is more than 100. In emerging equity also, if you look at, the batting average is 100, and across alpha, across periods, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 7 year, 10 year. Similarly, in opportunities, tax saver, and so on. Look at this, and why we say that patience is finally very much required in equity markets. This is a small cap fund in 10-year period. If you look at in June 19, this fund was giving just 14% CAGR. March 20, which was last year, this number dipped down to 6%. There was a lot of noise across media about mutual funds not performing, and seen 1 year period, 1.5 year period, how the 6% CAGR has started to move to 22% CAGR on a 10-year period. But the people who redeemed during March, April, May have still not able to enter the markets again. So clearly, friends, I think it's very important to hold on your patience in equity markets and make sure that you enter with a longer term horizon. Similarly, in emerging equity, it's now a 15,000 crore fund. When I took this fund, it was a 48 crore fund. Over a decade since I've been managing, we slowly built up on performance, making sure we make less and less mistakes. And in June, the CAGR was 16. March, it came down to 9. And again, in March, in July of 2021, as we speak, July end, it's 21%. And look at the kind of double-digit returns which the fund has delivered 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 7 year, 10 year. So my sense is if you are a patient investor for a longer period of time, there's no better asset class than equities to be invested, but have a disciplined asset allocation. So in outlook, markets in our view may remain range bound in the near term, given stalled economic momentum for some time, lack of clarity on earning progression for the next couple of quarters. Broader markets have continued to outperform Nifty. Earnings delivery will be crucial. FI flows have been patchy. Things to watch out will be progress on vaccination, COVID trajectory, inflation, global interest rate cycles, very important. And on the news flow front, I think divestment on PSU, bad bank, or any other kind of fiscal or monetary stimulus or policy which would be supportive will result in overall market sentiment. Quickly on the themes which we are very positive on, friends. I think the first theme we are all witnessing since Demon is big is getting bigger, strong is getting stronger. Friends, it doesn't mean only large caps. You will be surprised to know that between 100 to 650 companies by market cap, and the reason I'm taking 101 to 650 is assuming 100 to be the large cap companies. In that 101 to 650, which is a universe of 550 companies, there are about 200 plus companies which are market leaders in the sectors they operate in. It may be a luggage guy, it may be a electrical cable and wire guy, it could be a tile manufacturing guy, it could be a consumer durable guy. They are leaders 1, 2, 3 in their sectors, but because of market capitalization, they are classified as mid and small. It doesn't mean that they are not big. They are sector leaders. And the theme I am saying is big is getting bigger, strong is getting stronger. Look at this data. In the last incremental 3 years, the NBFC sector's incremental basis is only housing finance top 2 companies are 90% of market share. The top 6 banks are 69% market share. The top 5 cement companies are 91% market share. The top 5 steel companies are 90% market share, and so on and so forth. And we are seeing consolidation across sectors like cables, wires, tiles, batteries, pipes, luggage, grocery, retail, everything. And my sense is that last 3-4 years and post-COVID, we have seen consolidation across sectors, which is benefiting the listed space. And that's why you saw the economic contracting last year, but corporate India, the listed space doing extremely well. Keep that in mind. And our focus is to ride with the sectoral leaders. Our focus is to gain franchises at reasonable valuations and ride them for a longer periods of time. Because many sectors with large unorganized opportunity and large underpenetrated markets are started to show the shift. Second theme, friends, is again a very powerful theme. It has been down for almost 11 years now, is the revival of industrial manufacturing and private sector capex. I have touched that on briefly, this part, that the cash flows, which is the first requisite of corporate India, is extremely strong. And I think that should kick off, the private sector capex. The capacity utilization across steel, cement, which are the 2 large sectors now, power, are running at almost 80 to 85% utilization. Many sectors like chemicals are seeing very, very strong uptick in demand momentum and visibility for next 3-5 years. And so is healthcare and infrastructure. So I think after a long time, we are seeing the initial signs, and I'm sure it should not be a false alarm this time around, that probably investment cycle is poised to pick up. What is contributing is the PLI schemes, friends, a new pro-growth template for India's industrial policy in our view. And as per Credit Suisse, the brokerage house, they could add 144 billion to FY27 sales, which is almost roughly 10 lakh crores of incremental sales and about $70 billion of GDP to us. In the last 2, 3 months, friends, one trend which I am seeing across corporate India is that every company in their conference calls also this time has been talking about very strong demand from exports. And you dig down deeper, it's the China plus strategy which is playing out. Many sectors we are seeing that silent play where large corporations globally are started to shift a part of their supply chains to India, Vietnam, Bangladesh, and they want to diversify out of China. Electronics, we have started to see the pickup being extremely strong. And my sense is that India in the next 5 years will become a global hub for electronics mobile exports. Today, it may sound Greek, it may sound optimistic, but my sense is that the way the ecosystem is developing with Apple, Foxconn, Winstron, everybody coming into the country, it's set. And that's the same template I am seeing being repeated for ACs, LED lights, chemicals, API, pharma, and so on and so forth. So friends, I think manufacturing and industrial is looking to come back very strongly. And my bet will be that the next 3, 5 years, we should see a very strong momentum, and we have to pick up the right stocks in that sector. If you look at the third theme, it's revival of residential real estate, friends. And there are various things which are, 5 years have been very, very bad. RERA, Demon, GST, IL&FS crisis, Yes Bank, and last but not the least, COVID. But COVID, in my view, has come as a blessing for real estate because people have understood the importance of house. People have understood the importance of home, and everybody needs bigger spaces. Office has been conducted, school has been conducted. And across the markets, what we are seeing is that led by lower interest rates, improved affordability, because last 5, 6 years, prices have moved nowhere. So in terms of affordability index, it's the best in last 2.5 decades. Also, the consolidation theme, which I spoke about, has been played out in real estate as well. The number of launches and sales which have come down by the listed players have been very, very good. So I think clearly real estate is showing signs of revival. I'm talking about residential real estate being the core. And that, in my view, should aid to a lot of beneficiaries. There are about 200 sectors which are part of the real estate cycle, which is the mortgage lenders, the buyers, cables, paint companies, plywood companies, consumer durable companies, and so on and so forth. So we are extremely positive on the ancillary real estate place, and we believe that next 3, 4 years could be very strong for their demand. The fourth theme, friends, is digitalization. We have already seen one of the food delivery companies being listed out there. There will be many more themes on digitalization front. But I think what we are seeing is clearly that digitalization is becoming a core part of any business. It's no longer a strategy, it has to be executed. And from different sectors, if you look at in 2005, not even one company was among the top 5 valued companies globally in terms of tech companies. Today, except Microsoft in the top 5 in 2005, in 2020, all the 5 companies are digital or tech companies, and clearly with a market cap of more than $1 trillion. And clearly that shows that people who won't change their business models will probably be giving away market share to the leaders. And that we are seeing across sectors. Look at companies like Goldman Sachs. Their narrative is now we are a tech company. We are no longer a brokerage firm. JP Morgan is saying that we have a team of 40,000 technologists, including 18,000 developers. Honeywell, an industrial company, is saying that Honeywell engineers are software engineers. And Glaxo is saying that we will have a fully digitalized delivery system. Pizza Hut is deploying robotic waiters in their restaurants in Asia. So every company in every sector are using digital and tech as a tool to transform themselves, and that's the reality. In India, we have seen IT as an indispensable cog. Indian IT industry has done an excellent job. In 99, we were a very small $4 billion industry. As we speak, we are at about $160 billion exports, and we have showed to the world what we can do. But in the overall scheme of things, we are just 12-13% market share, still at $160 billion exports. And our sense is now, apart from the traditional Indian IT services, what you are seeing is the unicorn world. And obviously, more than 18 unicorns were born in this year itself. What was the number for the last many years cumulatively together? And our sense is that if you look at the Indian IT market cap today, it's about $400 billion, the listed space. Add to another the new age tech, which is about 18, $20 billion. And our sense is over the next 3, 5 years, you would have various companies get listed which can contribute another $200 billion to the market cap of the tech industry. So my sense is that we are seeing a very big revolution in the country where new age platforms, new age businesses are coming for listing and being available to public market shareholders. It has not happened. So I think this is another theme where we will evaluate with an open mind every company which comes and see where there's the incremental business models, which companies can become very large. And if you ask me, there are about almost 350 odd companies which are $1 billion market cap. If you look at China, there are about 2,500 plus odd companies. And my sense is this number will only increase as more and more unicorns get listed over the period of time. So I think this is all where we are. And my sense is that we, after a very sharp rally, needs to be, a little careful. But if we get opportunity on corrections, increase your equity allocation. This is not the time to be overweight equity. This is a time to be neutral equities, and make sure that you have enough margin of safety in your portfolio. We have showed that how funds have performed, how funds have added alpha, how funds have created wealth for investors for almost more than a decade now with consistent management. And in investment, one learning which, friends, I would like to share is that it's not that always you want to go for a six when you're batting. It's always important that you defend your wicket. You are there on the pitch for a longer period of time, because if you get out, there's no way you can complete the match or win the match. So it's very, very important that you make less mistakes and make sure that you are there on the pitch for a longer period of time.